Hey guys, Mashud here. Today we'll be reviewing Sanam. Now the only thing I knew about this movie was the title song, and judging from the trailer it looks like it was some sort of a love triangle. But then I found out who the director was and I knew it was gonna be much worse. It's directed by Divya Khosla. Who, you may ask? Good question. She's the one who directed Yariyan and was the producer of Roy.
Film ek sapna hai.
The movie opens with an old Rishi Kapoor taking pictures of random things, trying to make it as heartwarming as possible, but failing miserably. Akash, played by Pulkit Samrat, has a boss he hates and imagines him as literally the devil. The boss has the whole broken English and incorrect quotations going on. That's been done a million times in Bollywood.
The day was not built in Rome.
Trust me, this gets old really fast. Akash wants the New Year's Eve off but doesn't get it since his boss is the devil. So, like any employee, he bumps work and heads to a New Year's party. Now, the director is so delusional that her first movie was a hit, she posts one of the songs in the radio. And not only that, but at the New Year's party, the director herself is the dancer as a special appearance. The boss happens to be at the same party and eventually gets booked for leaving. Turns out, Akash needs some contract by the client Pablo in order to get his promotion and settle in the US.
मैंने नवा फोन लिया है। अरे आकाश साहब, आप अगर बुरा नहीं मानेंगे तो आपके साथ एक सेल्फी हो जाए। ये थैंक यू साहब, व्हाट्सएप पे डाल के इसको डिस्प्ले करता हूँ। अबे कितना खुश है देख। एक ही जॉब के एक ही पोस्ट पे।
Wait, what the hell was that? They literally added a random conversation within an ongoing conversation. And why would a random janitor want a picture with his coworker for his WhatsApp display picture? Anyways, his mom calls him and tells him he has to come home as the family business is being sold and Dadaji, aka Grandpa, ain't feeling too well. So he heads back to Tanakpur, where it happens to be snowing all year round. Seriously. We dive into a flashback and see Akash used to be an annoying little girl dressed as a boy. Him and his Dadaji used to be one of the best friends and... is this supposed to be a touching moment? Because I think the only one who got touched was probably... Oh, come on, yes, you saw it coming. So, like any other 80-year-old, Akash asks his Dadaji when will he find his one true love while sitting in the fakest backdrop. Dadaji happens to be a fortune teller and advises Akash his true love is just 500 steps away from the studio. His heart will start beating very fast when he's near the house. However, he will never have her. Wow, way to ram it to the kid. So little Akash literally walks 500 steps from the studio to check the house out and stops at the wrong house apparently because he felt nothing. We jump a little forward and notice that Akash is rocking a 70s hairstyle and the little girl named Shruti he eventually falls in love with is all grown up. The thing is, they look like they're in their late 20s, even with groundbreaking makeup, but act like they're supposed to be teenagers. They just end up acting really childish. Anywho, they decide to meet up at the same spot for some function the next day. Turns out Akash's uncle wants his nephew to leave for the city and study there to have a brighter future. Only thing is, the train leaves in 1 hour. Yeah.
उसे बताएगा भी नहीं।
उसने रोक लिया तो?
Well, could you be more selfish? At least let her know by, sending a friend or a letter or something. Back to the present. He counts his steps again to her house, but the house is locked and abandoned. Akash has to go back before selling off the studio and finds out that the big contract is on hold as Pablo had a divorce. Mrs. Pablo got everything and now he somehow has to convince her to give him the contract. What's the contract about? We are never told. He finds out Mrs. Pablo is in Canada for some yoga camp, where apparently they switched their actual names to take on anonymous identities. Yeah, this makes absolutely no sense. He somehow convinces this other guy to do the dirty work for him and find Mrs. Pablo, which he eventually does. He tries to flirt with Mrs. Pablo and eventually succeeds in becoming close with her. What the hell is cuddle therapy? This looks so wrong on so many levels. And what is that guy doing? That's called sexual harassment, not cuddling. Oh, and the awkward choreography is amazing. Once again, it's actually done by the director herself. Nice jumping jacks there. So guess who happens to be at the same yoga camp? In Canada. That's right, Anjali. Well, that's the fake name. It's Shruti, his long-lost love. He recognizes her instantly, however, she states he might have mistaken her for one of her sisters or cousins. We flash back again. They show again the same scene of him throwing the ball at another girl's house, who's clearly like 12 or something. I don't know why, but this time he's smiling. So we're to assume that 12-year-old girl was Mrs. Pablo. I guess only she remembers him as a kid, however he does not remember her. So for another yoga experiment, two people are stranded and are told to find their way back to the yoga camp. What's Shruti's genius plan? To punch the local sheriff and stay the night in jail. You know you could have asked for help, right? That's what you're there for. This is a yoga camp, not a fight club. They realize the white guy is gay and lure him by using Akash.
भगवान के लिए मुझे छोड़ दो.
Okay, that was funny. They tie him up and escape. They sleep in the open wilderness in a sleeping bag that was given to them by some random guy for no reason at all. After coming back, they find out it's time to leave. Akash declares his love for her, but Shruti is like,
प्यार वो सफर है जो मीलों में नहीं गहराई में नापा जाता है. हम कितना चाहिए ये जरूरी नहीं, उन दिनों में कितना चाहिए ये जरूरी है.
Alright, so it's one of those movies. She ends up leaving him high and dry, and Akash apologizes to Mrs. Pablo that he was faking it and is not really in love with her. He also doesn't ask for the contract since they're apparently friends now. After a year, he sees Shruti from across the street and he doesn't get to her in time. Why? Because he locks himself in the car. I'm not even joking. Why not just drive to where she is or follow the damn cab she just took? Mrs. Pablo shows up to see Akash and states she needs his help to build her new company with the help of his company. This way they can remain friends, and she eventually tells him that she knows where Shruti is. So they head on to search for Shruti, obviously displaying the love triangle going on. They find the place, but turns out Shruti hasn't been there for the past year. Akash finally agrees to Mrs. Pablo's offer and decides to finish the first task he actually set out to do. To sell the goddamn studio. Once again, he decides to count his goddamn steps until 500 instead of simply driving or walking straight there. Mrs. Pablo sees him walk past her old house and right in front of Shruti's, where apparently the house is no longer abandoned or locked, and Shruti happens to be right in front of the door. Shruti states they can't live together. When asked why, she does not give one straight goddamn answer. Mrs. Pablo leaves, and so does Shruti. Akash turns into Devdas. Akash stalks Shruti and finds out that she has some heart condition and has a short time to live unless they find a heart donor. Meanwhile, outside the hospital, No, that doesn't happen. In this movie, Akash confronts her, she says my bad, and then we're shown a montage of them growing old together. I don't know why. Shruti is transferred to the emergency ward as she's breathing her final breaths. Miraculously, we find a donor and she survives. However, Akash is nowhere to be found because she goes looking for him. His co-workers and his landlord have no idea where he is. His parents just shut the door on her, being of no help. Get this, when she walks to her old house, her heart suddenly starts beating fast, indicating he was the donor. Crushed by this realization without any actual hard evidence, she decides to buy the studio. I don't know where the money came from, and the movie ends in a heartwarming smile of Rishi Kapoor. You know, if this movie was released in maybe the 80s or the 90s, it might have worked. The tacky dialogues, the horrible dance move, the predictable story, I mean it has all the recipes for an old Bollywood movie. That stuff just doesn't work nowadays. Well, for a good movie it doesn't work nowadays. And seriously, what the hell is the director doing choreographing when she has no experience in choreography? I mean, the only good thing about this movie was probably the 2 songs. Everything else was really over-dramatized. So what did you guys think about this movie? Do you think the director will get better in her next movie, or once a flop, always a flop director? Let me know your reviews below and I'll see you guys next time. Later.